Welcome back, everyone. Here with another list of scary things. Today we're taking a look at the top 5 demonic possession cases. The Amityville Horror was one of the first demonic possessions to really be in the public eye. This case not only became famous because of the movie, but also because of how terrifying it was. In 1949, a young boy began acting out and claimed he was being tormented by a demon. The crew claimed they saw a small boat in the middle of the ocean. They offered the people on the small boat a ride, but they refused. Thanks for watching. If you like this list, check out our other videos. And we'll see you in the next one. Bye. Even though there weren't any people on the boat, the crew insisted on leaving, but the captain wouldn't listen. He wanted to investigate. And that's when things went horribly wrong. They boarded the empty vessel and found a bottle filled with a strange liquid. Not knowing what it was, the captain poured it into his coffee and drank it. Within minutes, he became violent and aggressive. The others quickly tied him up so he couldn't hurt himself or anyone else. They continued on their journey, but the weather took a turn. A horrible storm struck the ship, which almost sank. When they woke up the next morning, they found the captain dead on the deck with a rope around his neck. They quickly dropped anchor and rowed ashore, running away from the cursed ship. The curse continued on, however, with people finding the ship on the shore. Each time someone went aboard the ship, they experienced terrifying events, such as the crew of one ship disappearing without a trace. To this day, the ship remains cursed, and we suggest you stay away from it. He even admitted that he wanted the demon to possess him completely. This doll maker may look like a harmless old man, but we assure you he's anything but. In fact, he's made the news several times for demonic activity. Most of the stories involving him are from his former wife, Anna. She claims that he was always interested in the occult and began making dolls that looked eerily similar to women he knew. However, she didn't think much of it until he disappeared one day and she found his workshop filled with dolls. The craziest part was that he had used her face to make the dolls. But that wasn't the only strange thing. She also found a book filled with spells, one of which was titled How to Summon a Demon Wife. And that's when she realized he wasn't a harmless doll maker. Instead, he was a man who made dolls for sacrifices. He used his dolls to take the souls of anyone who entered his workshop. And he'd taken the soul of one woman who entered the shop and put it in the doll that looked exactly like her. He hadn't even done this once, but twice. And he was planning to do it again. Anna believes that the soul of the second girl is still trapped inside the doll. And if anyone touches the doll, she will be set free and the person holding the doll will become her prisoner. At first, he refused to speak to anyone unless it was through writing. And some of the things he wrote were disturbing. He wrote that he hated his mother and wanted her dead. He also wrote that he wanted to kill people and eat their flesh. Of course, the doctors thought these were just the ramblings of a troubled child until they saw what he could do. He could move objects with his mind, turn the pages of books with his mind, rise above the floor, spin his bed around and walk backwards. One day, he wrote that he wanted the devil inside him. And that's when his mother agreed to let him see a priest. After some questioning, the boy claimed that he wasn't possessed by one demon, but rather 7. The priest then asked him, "What are your names?" And the boy answered, "My name is Satan. The other names are Asmodeus, Legion, Paimon, Beelzebub, Mephistopheles and Samogina. I have come to stay for all eternity." The priest performed the last rites and baptized the boy. From then on, he was cured of his ailments. Some say this story was true and some say it was made up. But either way, it makes for a scary movie and a terrifying story. It led to a movie and now many other forms of media. But what actually happened in this house? This possessed church was once a place of worship, but now it's a tourist attraction for people who want to see what it looks like. Now, before we go any further, you should know that no one has died here or been the victim of a brutal murder. No, this cathedral is haunted by spirits that make regular appearances and even interact with people. Of course, we don't recommend you visit. There are plenty of stories about this cathedral, such as the apparition of a blue dog, a gray lady in 18th century clothes, and even some shadow figures. Some have even experienced scratches and bites on their legs. We're not sure what kind of presence lurks in this building, but it seems to be quite friendly. It doesn't seem to harm anyone, but instead watches over the town. Still, we wouldn't want to stick around to find out. In 1975, George and Kathy Lutz moved into a new house. They were excited for a fresh start in their new home. However, within 2 weeks of moving in, strange things started happening. George began to hear whispers and footsteps throughout the night. And he also started seeing a creepy, gaunt-looking man wandering the halls. He would disappear after George came near him. One day, George noticed a pentagram carved into the floorboard of the basement stairs. Then one night he heard chains dragging metal moans. That's when he called in Father Delaney to perform an exorcism. But the priest felt something dark watching him while he walked around the house. So he left without blessing the house. The next day, George decided to rip up the floorboards where the pentagram was carved. As soon as he did, black, foul-smelling water began pouring out from the hole. Soon after, Kathy began feeling strange and convulsing on the floor. George called in more priests, but all of them were scared to enter the home. He eventually had to bring in an investigator, who advised him to destroy the pentagram with a hammer. And that seemed to do the trick. The house seemed normal again, and the priests were able to bless the home. But strange things began happening again, and this time with George. He began levitating above the floor. One night, he woke up and said, "Get out, you son of a bitch." And that's when the police arrived to find George strangled by his own bedsheets. His eyes were wide with terror and his tongue was sticking out of his mouth. To this day, no one knows if this house is haunted or if George was just a victim of a terrible tragedy. You know, there's nothing like having an uninvited guest inside your body, especially if that guest is a demon. Let's get into it. No. 5. The Amityville Horror. This story needs no introduction. Number 4. The Exorcist. What's scarier than a possessed person, a possessed child? That's right. No. 3. The Loud Cathedral. No. 2. The Ghost Ship. This ghost ship was sailing the seas when it encountered something evil. No. 1. The Doll Maker. That's all for this list.